Today's video is brought to you by Squarespace. A little over a month ago, BIQU launched Panda-Verse, an ecosystem of add-ons and accessories centered around Bambu Lab printers. We looked at a handful of these last year, but to say that they've added a few things since would be a massive understatement. BIQU contacted me to see if I was interested in testing out any of these new products, and while I had a handful of ideas, the one I was most excited about was lighting up my A1. This is really the only Bambu Lab printer that I haven't customized at all. And today we're going to change that. In this video, we'll go through the process of taking my A1 from this to this. And I'll share my thoughts based on my time with these products so far. So with all that being said, and without further ado, let's get right into today's video. Over the years, this channel has leaned more heavily in functional upgrades, but I started off doing a whole bunch of cosmetic mods, and I still really enjoy that side of things, especially when I can also blend it with some function. When trying to decide the best order of operations for installing things, I just decided we will start from the bottom and work our way up. The first item on our list is Panda Aura. This is basically a giant underglow for the entire printer, giving us a bunch of RGB LEDs to customize and even a speaker that we can play around with. The main unit consists of an 8mm thick piece of CNC'd acrylic that has an LED strip routed around the outer perimeter. It also comes with a bag of accessories that contains the screws, cables, and other items needed for the install. Along with the main acrylic base, there is a speaker included that will connect to the base that contains a physical reset button on the side of it. As for installation, we'll start with laying the printer on its side so that we can gain access to the bottom. When doing this, I realized that one of my stock feet had fallen off and gone missing, and I did find that you can just buy a pack of adhesive feet for this printer, but with Panda Aura, the entire printer sits on top of the acrylic plate, elevating it, and it has its own feet, replacing the need for the stock feet altogether. With access to the bottom, we'll remove 4 screws used to attach the bottom panel to the printer. Then lay down the main plate for Aura, ensuring that the feet are up against your tabletop and that the cable coming off of it is facing towards the back right. Now we can set the printer on top. There's 2 large pegs that are used for alignment. We'll basically just push the Z extrusions up against those pegs and then do our best to make sure that the printer is aligned left to right. I just did my best to eyeball it. Then using the included self-tapping screws, we'll bolt Aura to the base of the printer. BIQU's Wiki recommends sliding the printer slightly off of your work surface and kind of looking up to install the screws. It's a little bit awkward, but it does mean that nothing's going to be sliding around on you, and it's a great time to quickly check that you did align the printer with the acrylic correctly. You can see right through the acrylic and just make sure that's the case, and then just bolt down those 4 screws. Now we're ready to move on to the electrical. For this, take the plug coming out the back side of the main panel and plug it into the bottom of the speaker housing. The speaker has a large magnet embedded in the back side of it, and that's what we'll use to attach it or mount it onto our printer. Next, we need to install the included metal pad to the back right side of the printer so the speaker can attach to it. And this is just going to be held in place by the double-sided adhesive that comes pre-installed. Before peeling and sticking the adhesive, I recommend wiping down the area of plastic with some isopropyl alcohol if you have any handy, just to remove any sort of dust, debris, or oils that might prevent the adhesive from sticking properly. The final step is to connect the included cables together, then plug one side into the speaker and the other side into an open 4-pin port on the back of the A1. Now we're ready to power on the printer. The way this is paired to the printer is going to be nearly identical for most all of the items covered today, so I'm just going to go through this process once. This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform designed to help you stand out and succeed online. Whether you're starting out fresh or growing a brand, Squarespace gives you everything you need to build a clean, professional website and make it your own. I built my Modbot Army site on Squarespace because I wanted a central hub for everything I do. Videos, sponsor info, and a way for people to get in touch. What stood out to me was how easy it was to make the site look great, without having to touch a single line of code. Their Blueprint AI helped me get started in just a few steps, by asking me simple questions about my goals and automatically building a layout around them. From there, the drag and drop editor made it super easy to fine-tune everything. Drop in images, move sections around, and get things exactly where I wanted them with zero hassle. Whether you're building a personal blog or creating an e-commerce website, Squarespace has you covered. So if you've been thinking about launching your own site, head to squarespace.com/modbot to start your free trial. And when you're ready to go live, use code MODBOT for 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. After Aura has powered on, it will give off its own wireless hotspot. Use your phone or computer to connect to that hotspot and then be guided through the rest of the installation process. You'll start by connecting the device to your local network and then pairing it with your printer. The device will scan your network for Bambu Lab printers, so it's important to make sure that your printer and the device are both on the same wireless network. You'll then select your device and it will ask you for the access code. And to get this on the A1, you just go under the settings menu and then there's another tab that says LAN mode only. If you click on that, you'll be able to see your access code there. Once you enter the access code and click pair, Aura will be synced to your printer. Using the IP address of Aura to pull up its settings page, there is a ton of customization options. You can turn the light on or off, have it only on when the printer's light is on, have it flash red when there's an error, set a solid color, adjust brightness, and choose between 8 different light modes. I've been running the sort of standard RGB rainbow mode, but if that is too loud for your liking, there are a lot of other options. The menu also lets you adjust the speaker, whether you want to enable or disable it, adjust the volume, set a custom sound for when a print completes or errors out, and choose between sound presets or even upload your own audio files. Moving on to the bed, my original plan was to install Panda Status. This adds a strip of LEDs to the front of your bed, similar to what the H2D has. I really like this on the H2D. I just think it looks nice, and it's also a plus being able to get a quick visual of print progress from a distance, but after getting it installed on here, I had second thoughts. The Panda Status is just held to the bed using adhesive, and VHB is really strong, and I've used it all the time in various printer builds, but it just didn't stick quite as well as I would have liked. On top of that, while the LEDs are low voltage, the idea of it whipping back and forth on this printer, because of this printer being a bed slinger, concerned me if it fell off, and ultimately I decided to just remove it. This upgrade is also compatible with the X series and P series of printers, and I feel much more comfortable installing it on a machine where the bed is just rising up or down, so I will likely install it on one of those two machines and we'll just save that upgrade for another day. Next up is the Panda Lux A1, which is very simple to install and solves one of the complaints I had with the A1. The camera on this printer comes with a tiny spot LED, which, while adorable, doesn't actually do much to light up your print area. To install this, we'll start by raising the toolhead up to the top of the printer to give us a cleaner access to the bottom of the X extrusion. Then we'll use a little bit of alcohol to clean off the area we're going to be sticking those LEDs. The strip comes pre-installed with adhesive, so all we need to do is peel off the backing and do our best to make sure that when we install it, it is centered left to right on the printer. With the LEDs on, remove the adhesive from the inside of the printed part and place it over that LED on the camera. It might not be totally necessary, but I did remove the little swivel cover that comes pre-installed just to make sure that the adhesive had as good of a bond as possible. There's a sensor inside of that printed part that will allow us to turn the new LEDs on or off using the screen or the Bambu Handy app the exact same way you'd control the stock LED. Then we'll use just a couple of zip ties to secure the new wire to the wires already coming down the right side of the machine, and we'll route that cable to the back and plug it into one of the 4-pin connectors. Now when we power on the machine, we have way more light to see what the printer is doing. This is something I found really helpful when monitoring the prints using the Bambu Handy app or through the slicer itself. You may have noticed that in order to connect Lux, I had to either unplug Panda Aura or my AMS Lite because this printer only comes with two 4-pin connectors on the back of it. This brings us to our next item, the Panda Branch Plus. In short, this gives us a ton of additional connectivity options, allowing us to connect all sorts of other peripherals and add-ons without having to do things like splicing. The Plus variant includes 5 5-volt USB-C outputs, as well as 5 24-volt 2-pin connectors. The process for installing this should be relatively simple, but I ran into some issues. I started out by printing off the STL files contained in BIQU's Wiki. This gives you two different options for how you can attach the board to the printer. The first just has you using 2 screws to bolt this to the back of the vertical extrusion. The only issue is that my A1 doesn't have any holes in the back of my vertical extrusions. My A1 is technically a retail unit, however, it was sent to me really early before the public launch of the A1 happened. Looking at the product page, it does show that the A1 does indeed have 2 holes on the back of the extrusion, but clearly this method was not going to work for me. The other option included printing out a latch as well as a thumb screw. I tried this method, but even with the thumb screw as tight as I could possibly get it before slipping, it was still a lot looser than I would have liked. For most, I would recommend just going with the 2-screw method, assuming that this is sort of an isolated thing with just the very earliest of units. But to keep things simple in my case, I ended up just going with the standard Panda branch. This serves the exact same purpose as the Plus, with the primary difference being that it only has 4 24-volt outputs, as well as 4 5-volt USB-A outputs. Still plenty for my purposes. I found a printable model that let me use heat inserts to attach the case together, and then stuck it to the back of the right Z extrusion just using some VHB tape. Then I took an extra short 4-pin connector I had laying around, plugged it into one of the ports at the back of the printer, and plugged the other end into the input of Panda Branch. This then allowed me to connect both Aura and Lux directly to it. Finally, we are moving on to the toolhead. The first thing we are going to install is Panda Cooler, which is basically a 2-in-1. This includes an RGB fan for the extruder motor, as well as nozzle LEDs. Personally, in all of my time using the A1, I've never had issues with the extruder motor overheating or skipping steps, so my primary reason for wanting to install this is strictly the RGB LEDs. The first thing we need to do is install 2 standoffs on the nozzle LED PCB. The standoffs come with adhesive already in place, so you're really just peeling off the cover, aligning the holes, and pressing it in place. The main thing to make sure of is that you're installing them on the correct side, which is the top side of the board, the same side that the wires are soldered to. Next, we'll remove the 4 self-tapping screws from the bottom of the fan housing cover. With those out, take the longer included self-tapping screws and install the nozzle PCB in place. The instructions didn't state whether the wires should be going towards the back or the front, but after trying both directions, my recommendation is to have the wires going towards the front. Installing the fan is a breeze. The printed housing just snaps into place on the diagonal bar that's on the left side of the toolhead, and the only thing you need to be sure of is that the wires are coming out the back side. To get power to everything, we're going to be grabbing it from the USB-C cable that's already routed to our toolhead. To do this, we'll need to remove 4 small screws securing the cable in place. Once these are out, if we pull up on the cable, the USB-C connector will pop right out. Slot the base of the printed part from the kit with the PCB over the plastic from the USB inlet and press down to snap it into place. Then take the small board with a USB-C sticking out of it and align it with the opening at the top of the toolhead. The only thing to be careful with here is to ensure that the pins on the USB-C board align with the ports on the board that we just installed on the base of the toolhead. Then press it into place. Now we'll use 3 screws to attach the top printed cover and secure everything in place. The manual tells you to use the same 4 screws that we removed from the stock cable to install it back into those printed parts, but in my case, the screws that I removed fell right into the opening of the printed part and were clearly too small. I have no idea whether this is a tolerance issue on the printed part or if this is another instance of Bambu changing the screws that they use for that cable from the version of the printer I have and the one that's being sold today. But in my case, I ended up just finding some alternative screws around the house that I was able to use to secure the cable properly into place. For the final step, connect the fan RGB, and nozzle LEDs to the ports on the board we just installed. There's a printed part included that's used to guide the nozzle LEDs up to the board, as well as prevent any sag, and that snaps into place on the right side of the toolhead using the exact same sort of method that we used with the fan. I'll take some pictures from the wiki and post them on screen so that you can see where everything needs to go. Connecting and pairing this is identical to Aura, and once again, you have a number of customizability options. For the fan LEDs, they match the settings from Aura, so you can adjust color, brightness, mode, and a few other behaviors. And for the nozzle LED, you can either set it to be solid white or mirror the settings applied to the fan. For as much as I like the rainbow RGB LEDs, I opted to leave the nozzle LEDs as white because I feel like it just does a better job of lighting up the immediate area that it's printing in. The final add-on we are going to be installing is the Knomi 3D. This is a newer variant of the standard Knomi that we've looked at before. I ran one in my Creality K1 paired with the Devil Burner toolhead for quite a long time, and I've had one installed on my A1 Mini as well for at least a handful of months now. As far as I can tell, this version is near identical to the standard Knomi, with the main difference being this sort of solid lens that's included with it that helps to give it kind of that 3D effect. The main thing you'll need for this install is a new front cover, and BIQU has STL files if you just want to go ahead and print one out in your favorite color, or they also sell, which is what I'm installing, a transparent cover for this mod. Start by removing the screen protector from Knomi. Then, with the screen facing towards the lens, press Knomi into place. It can really only go in one direction, and there are little pegs inside of the housing to make sure everything is aligned properly. At this point, everything still wants to fall out, so the last part of it is to install the little locking cover. Orientation on this does matter, so make sure you have everything lined up, and basically just pop the pegs in place, which secures the screen and that little 3D lens inside of that front cover. As for the printer, start by pulling off the front cover from the toolhead. This is just held in place by clips, but it does take a little bit of leverage. I've found that if you just have a little bit of nail, you can kind of use that as leverage, and if that doesn't work for you, then something like a small flathead screwdriver will help you pop it right off. Then pull off the rotating wheel that's just pressed into place. At the top front right of the extruder is a small opening, and that's what we'll use to fish the power cable through to Knomi. Plug this into the back of the screen, then pull out any slack and install your new cover onto your toolhead. The final part of this setup is just routing wires, and really there's two potential options for this. The first is to print out the clip and organizer provided in the wiki, and route the cable all the way back to Panda branch or to the backside of your printer. However, in my case, since I installed Panda Cooler, I have an extra 24 volt port available right at my toolhead. I didn't see this mentioned anywhere in the Knomi documentation, and it could be because Panda Cooler is a new product, but in Panda Cooler's docs, I did see that there was a little bit of writing that said one of the pins on here could be used for Knomi. So I confirmed this by grabbing my multimeter and saw that yes, it is outputting 24 volts. And so in my case, I went and cut the wire for it and just crimped on a small JST connector. So that way I don't have any additional wires coming off of the toolhead. Once we power on the A1, we'll connect Knomi to the printer in the exact same way we did with the RGB LEDs. However, once we get to the customization page, things are quite different. With Knomi, the main thing you're doing is deciding on what GIFs you want displayed. It comes preloaded with one for every operation that the machine does, and you can just leave those and change the color, but I feel like for most people that install this, they're going to want to customize the animations. That's really the main point of it. In total, there are 16 different operations that you can set GIFs for. If you don't want different ones displayed for everything, you can upload the same one for multiple operations. The main thing is that they need to be 240 by 240, I believe that's pixels in dimension, and file size is incredibly important. My current workflow has been searching through a GIF search engine like Giphy, downloading the file, and then using a web-based resizing tool to resize it to 240 by 240, and then optimize it so that way the file size is small enough to upload to Knomi. However, while I was working on the script and editing this video, I happened to see a post that another community member, TechJeeper, made a utility to streamline the entire process. While this isn't anything that's backed by BIQU as far as I can tell, it looks awesome. It basically lets you search for a GIF, does everything needed to then convert it to work with Knomi, and it even has a display so that you can preview it before deciding to commit. I'll have it linked in the description for anyone interested in going and checking it out. I think Knomi is a fun upgrade, and that's why I've been running it for quite a while on a couple other printers, but at this point, I'm not sure I'm entirely sold on the 3D version. I'll end up running it for a while and playing around with a few different animations to see if it helps give it more of a 3D effect before deciding if I'm just going to remove the lens and basically run it as a standard Knomi. Phew! That ended up being a lot more to cover than I originally anticipated, and doesn't even touch on any of the P series and X series RGB light mod things that are over here that were also sent over. Let me know in the comments down below if you're interested in maybe decking out the P1S with other light upgrades in a future video. I hope that you enjoyed this video and that it gave you some insight into some of the cosmetic upgrades available from BIQU's Panda-Verse. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments and I will do my best to answer. As always, if I don't know the answer to your questions, I have no problem reaching out directly to BIQU to try to get those answers for you. Also, if you are interested in finding out more about any of the items covered today or picking them up for yourself, I will have links available in the description. On that note, don't forget to like and subscribe for more great videos. We make a video just about every single week, so there's always fresh content coming your way. And if you want to support the channel further, I'll have links in the description over to our Patreon, where there are some really awesome rewards. Huge thank you to all of our existing Patreon supporters. I appreciate each and every one of you for allowing me to come back every single week and spend more time doing what I love, which is making content for you all to enjoy. On that note, this has been Daniel from ModBot. I look forward to seeing you guys in my next video. Peace, guys!